In this review, we are taking a closer look at the unfolding situation described as mayhem and chaos in Gaza City as Israeli attacks intensify, and we are going to break it down in a way that feels less like a news broadcast and more like an analytical review. Think of it as examining a piece of unfolding human drama where the key features, performance aspects, design elements, and unique selling points are all parts of the same story. The focus is not on sensationalizing, but on carefully walking through what is happening, how it is being conveyed, and what makes this moment stand out in the global conversation. The first and most striking feature is the imagery itself. Gaza City, a densely populated urban area, is not presented here in an ordinary state, but as a city under direct bombardment. The visuals that emerge show smoke rising over residential blocks, rubble strewn across roads, people rushing to find safety, and the overwhelming soundscape of explosions, ambulance sirens, and cries of panic. From a technical perspective, the footage captures not just the scale of destruction, but the atmosphere of unpredictability that comes with such violence. It is not a polished film set or a staged scene. It is raw documentation, which becomes part of its performance strength. For a viewer, this immediacy brings both clarity and discomfort. It strips away distance and forces engagement with the humanitarian stakes. When we look at performance aspects in terms of narrative delivery, there is an unavoidable tension between the sheer chaos on the ground and the way the story is structured by media outlets. Reporters try to maintain coherence, stringing together a sequence of events, but the people on the ground provide the truest performance. Residents carrying wounded relatives, children screaming for parents, aid workers struggling to navigate bombed-out streets. Their body language, their movement patterns, the way they look to the skies after each strike, these are unscripted performances that deliver the essence of what it means to live in a war zone. From a storytelling angle, this spontaneity makes the coverage uniquely gripping. It is not about perfect sentences or rehearsed delivery. It is about fractured human expression under duress, which gives the account authenticity. Design elements here take on an unusual interpretation. Normally, when we talk about design, we refer to how a product looks or how an interface functions. In this context, the design is the urban layout of Gaza itself and how it interacts with military targeting and civilian survival. Gaza is one of the most densely packed places in the world, and this density creates a unique visual and experiential design for conflict coverage. The towering apartment blocks, the narrow streets, the lack of open spaces, all of these contribute to a design environment where even small explosions create outsized effects. When airstrikes hit, the architecture becomes part of the spectacle. Walls collapse outward into alleys, glass shatters across sidewalks, and entire neighborhoods take on the appearance of skeletal ruins. The design here is not intentional in the sense of creativity. It is a collision between human urban planning and the destructive capacity of modern weaponry. Yet from the perspective of a viewer, the way the city's layout amplifies both the chaos and the human response is a central element of what makes the coverage so impactful. Another technical layer worth reviewing is the way sound functions in this environment. Performance is not just visual, it is auditory. The constant backdrop of drones in the sky, the thud of artillery, the sharp blasts of missiles, and the chaotic mixture of human voices form a kind of grim soundtrack. This sonic design amplifies the sense of disorientation. To a layperson watching or listening, the sounds provide an intuitive measure of danger. The fact that one can hear terror before one can see it creates a deeper connection to the reality of the people experiencing it. For those studying or analyzing the situation, it becomes an unplanned but powerful feature of the coverage that conveys urgency without words. One of the unique selling points of this coverage is its universality. While the story is grounded in a specific conflict between Israel and Gaza, the themes, civilian suffering, urban warfare, resilience under pressure, are globally relatable. Anyone, regardless of background, can imagine what it would be like to live in a home that could collapse at any moment or to scramble for clean water and electricity while explosions rock the city. That universality is why coverage of Gaza often dominates headlines. The city becomes a stage for the broader human condition under siege. The lived experiences of those on the ground are not abstractions. They are directly translated into universally understandable signs of distress and endurance. Another key feature lies in the emotional contrasts within the scenes. Amidst rubble, you see small flashes of normality. A child clutching a toy, families cooking a basic meal over open fire, neighbors helping clear debris. These are design elements of human resilience woven into a larger pattern of destruction. They provide narrative counterpoints that prevent the story from being only about despair. This balance is critical for engagement because audiences are not only drawn to tragedy, but also to survival and solidarity. It is in these moments where the human spirit becomes the central performance aspect, providing a unique selling point in itself. The idea that life pushes forward even when surrounded by collapse. On the technical side of communication, another aspect worth noting is the use of live feeds and mobile phone footage. Traditional broadcast crews provide structured reporting, but much of the rawest material comes from residents filming on their devices. This democratization of coverage is a design innovation in itself. It allows for multi-angled storytelling, where official narratives are supplemented or challenged by citizen journalists. The fact that shaky handheld shots of streets, hurriedly uploaded to social media, can rival or even surpass the reach of major networks adds to the layered performance of the story. This blending of professional and amateur inputs is not unique to Gaza. But in moments of heightened crisis, it becomes one of the defining features of how the story unfolds. From a structural review standpoint, the pacing of the coverage mimics the pacing of the attacks. Reports are not steady, they come in bursts. Quiet moments in the footage or narratives are quickly followed by sudden jolts of violence. This rhythm, though unplanned, creates an almost cinematic effect, drawing viewers into a cycle of anticipation and shock. To a lay audience, it feels like a suspense sequence. To those more analytically inclined, it highlights the unpredictable tempo of conflict and the challenge of building a coherent timeline in such conditions. One cannot overlook the visual motifs that repeat themselves throughout the coverage. Dust clouds hanging like curtains over neighborhoods, the sharp silhouette of people moving against burning buildings, the persistent presence of ambulances threading through crowds. These motifs act almost like recurring design patterns in a film or artwork, except here they are the real signatures of a city under fire. Their repetition not only documents destruction, but also ingrains these images into the collective global memory. When people think of Gaza during times of intense bombardment, it is these motifs that dominate their imagination. Another unique selling point is the scale of civilian displacement. The coverage often highlights people carrying bags of essentials, walking en masse to shelters or hospitals. This mass movement is not just a background detail, but a defining feature of the crisis. In terms of design, the sight of highways and city streets filled with pedestrians instead of vehicles becomes symbolic of the disruption of normal order. Performance-wise, the slow, heavy steps of families carrying children, bedding, or food become emblematic gestures of resilience. This feature resonates globally because displacement is a shared human fear, losing one's home and being forced into uncertainty. Technical details also extend to the humanitarian infrastructure. Hospitals operating without sufficient electricity, doctors performing surgeries under flashlight, and aid trucks waiting at sealed borders form another design element of this review. These are not battlefield images, but infrastructural breakdowns that serve as secondary performance aspects in the coverage. They remind viewers that war is not only about bombs falling, but also about the systems that fail to protect or sustain life under extreme conditions. These breakdowns become unique selling points in humanitarian advocacy, as they give tangible examples for audiences and policymakers to latch onto when considering the urgency of intervention. On the emotional design front, the interplay of fear and defiance is consistently present. The coverage shows civilians voicing anger, young people chanting slogans, or families refusing to leave their homes despite danger. These responses form part of the human design of conflict, where survival is not just physical, but also psychological. The performance of defiance, whether through words, gestures, or simply staying put, creates a narrative tension that elevates the story beyond mere victimhood. For viewers, this injects complexity, recognizing both the vulnerability and the agency of those under attack. When we take a step back and consider why this coverage resonates so deeply, it comes down to its layered construction. At the surface, there are explosions, rubble, and chaos. Beneath that, there are human stories of fear and resilience. At another level, there is the technical fabric of how these stories are communicated. Through professional broadcasts, citizen videos, social media updates, and on-the-ground testimony. Each of these layers provides entry points for different audiences, from casual observers to analysts, from empathetic humanitarians to hardened policymakers. This layered accessibility is itself a unique selling point that ensures the coverage remains globally relevant. The balance of detail and accessibility also plays a key role in audience engagement. For laypeople, the story is accessible because it speaks through images and emotions that require no special knowledge to interpret. For those seeking technical understanding, the coverage provides insights into military escalation, humanitarian logistics, and geopolitical framing. This dual functionality makes the story versatile, able to circulate widely without losing depth. It is a performance in communication design, where simplicity and complexity coexist in the same frame. In summary of this unfolding review, the coverage of mayhem and chaos in Gaza City as Israeli attacks intensify presents itself not merely as news, but as an experience with definable features, performance elements, design aspects, and unique selling points that together capture the reality of urban conflict in the modern era. It is immediate, multi-layered, emotionally resonant, technically diverse, and universally communicable. This is what gives it its lasting impact and its unavoidable place in the global consciousness.